President Ramaphosa is now responding to the debate on his budget speech in the National Assembly.
Vote of the Presidency, Vote 1. Yesterday's debate provided ample evidence of the dynamism of our democracy, of the ability of our institutions to give a platform to a diversity of views. It provided a valuable opportunity as well for representatives of the people of this country to articulate some of their views, interests, and expectations. It demonstrated that we disagree often vigorously, but we are bound together by a determination to make South Africa work. We are bound together by a desire for a South Africa that has confronted many divisions of the past and sought to heal them. We are bound together by a set of constitutional principles and values that clearly differentiate our democratic present from our horrible apartheid past. Several speakers yesterday spoke of nation building and the need for reconciliation. The
Honorable Groenewald said that we are all South Africans that must build this country, and I agree with it. In the same measure, we are all South Africans, and we have an equal responsibility, and that is unity and reconciliation.
All of us have an equal responsibility to foster unity and reconciliation, and not just unity and reconciliation in name, but unity and reconciliation in real effect. That requires that we recognize both the injustices of the past, but also recognize how the legacy of that injustice endures and continues in social and economic terms to the present. When we talk about white privilege and black poverty, Honorable Maimani, we are not only talking about the past, we are also talking about the present. And we need to recognize that this present was caused by what happened in the past. It did not arrive today or just yesterday. It existed in the past, and we are in this situation because of what was done to our people in the past. We cannot build a united nation unless we fundamentally change that material reality. We cannot achieve reconciliation until we have torn down the barriers that still divide us. The drafters of the National Development Plan said that there is still much that divides us, and we are still divided by the past or the barriers that were put up in the past. Some of those barriers exist today, and some of them exist in people's minds. They exist in the people who think that it is still acceptable to sing, destem, and display the old South African flag. These are not symbols of Afrikaner identity. They are symbols of discrimination, oppression, misery, and still wanting to go back to the past. These barriers exist in the minds of those who would deny that apartheid was a crime against humanity. These barriers exist in the minds of those who measure people's worth by their race, people who measure people's worth by their gender, their language, their ethnic group, class, or income. These barriers also exist in the landscape of our country between those who live in the rural areas and those who live in the urban areas, and those who live in the former homelands and those who live in cities and towns, between those who live on the periphery of those who live in the center of things. And these barriers exist in people's daily conditions of life, between those who have jobs and those who are unemployed, between those who are skilled and those who do not have skills, and between those who have assets and those who have no assets at all. As we work to build a united nation, we need to tear down these barriers that prevent women from occupying their rightful place in society. This was a matter that Minister Dlamini raised very sharply and directly yesterday. We tend to think that nation building is about reconciling black and white South Africans, yet it is also about reconciling men and women. It is about achieving equality in the home, at schools, in colleges, and in universities, in the workplace, and also in this parliament, in government, and in every public institution. In every area of government work, there is a need to give specific attention to the representation of women, whether it is in the Black Industrialist Program, our public employment programs, infrastructure development, public procurement, or small business support. We need to prioritize the education of the girl child and remove the impediments that prevent these wonderful young ladies from completing their schooling and advancing to higher education and training. Government is doing much in this regard, but it is quite clear that we need to do more. We need to build on programs like She Conquers campaign, increasing its reach and its impact across the country. Today is Take a Girl Child to Work, an initiative that demonstrates to the girls of this country that their rightful place in society is wherever their dreams can take them to. If your dream one day, young ladies, is to become members of parliament, maybe you will even become better members than parliament than all of us. If your dream is to become a minister of government, maybe you will even become a much better minister of government. If your dream is to become a scientist, maybe you can even be better scientists than we have. We welcome the learners who are here today. We are hopeful that from among this group will emerge a new generation, yes, of educators, doctors, pilots, ready to take up the needs and interests of our people. We are hopeful that from among this group will emerge enormously talented people. Our Constitution envisages a state founded on the principles of dignity, the achievement of equality, and the advancement of human rights and freedoms. As we work together to overcome the divisions of race, gender, and class that have characterized our country over decades, we often overlook the discrimination, oppression, and disempowerment of people with disabilities. The Honorable Nieuho Drachen yesterday said much to us about this area of work. And the ANC government has done much to advance the rights and opportunities of people with disabilities over the past 24 years But it is equally true that from what she was saying, we have not done enough. Our approach needs to begin with a greater awareness of the challenges facing people with disabilities and how this should impact on the way we design public infrastructure, public buildings, how we provide public services, our recruitment and human resource management practices, and our approach to procurement and enterprise development. We must, in particular, attend to the specific needs of people with different forms of disability within our education and health systems. It is not enough for every department, public entity, company, and private organization to have a policy on disability. They need to have programs, real programs that affirm and empower people with disabilities. This we must do because people with disabilities are like all of us. They have rights that, like all of us, we must therefore do right by them. The mandate of this government is to tear down barriers between those who have and those who do not. It is in fulfillment of that mandate that we have embarked on a massive, far-reaching investment drive. As we have said before, we are seeking to mobilize investment from within South Africa, from elsewhere on the African continent, from Asia, from the Middle East, from Europe and the Americas. We are seeking investment from private companies, from sovereign wealth funds, and from public entities. This is not a 1996 class project. This is about addressing what can create jobs in our country. We have had several meetings with CEOs of some of the largest state-owned enterprises, where they have given us an indication of their investment plans over the coming years. They have informed us that over the next 5 years, they expect to invest a total of 420 billion rand into the South African economy. We are seeking investment that expands the industrial capacity of our economy, that creates jobs on an unprecedented scale, and that lifts millions of our people out of poverty. This is not an elite project. It is what I would call a revolutionary project. It is revolutionary because, taken together with other programs that we are involved in this government, it promises to fundamentally alter the economic conditions of the majority of South Africans. Investment, clearly in itself, is not a guarantor of growth nor of job creation. But without investment, neither of these will even be possible. Countries that succeed, and we see them as we travel all over, are countries that are generating investments from within themselves as countries and externally as well. As we have said before, the creation of jobs, the reduction of inequality and the eradication of poverty, and indeed the success of investment, is dependent on our ability to create the distortion, to correct rather, the distortions of the apartheid legacy. This includes our intensive efforts to address the huge skills deficit in our country by ensuring access to the children of the poor to quality education from ECD level right through to higher education and training. It includes our efforts to provide our people with houses, with land and other assets so that they may break the cycle of poverty through which poverty is passed from one generation to the next. Land reform is therefore fundamental to to the eradication of poverty. It is fundamental to restoring the dignity of all South Africans, to foster reconciliation and to forge national unity. It is for this reason that this government, guided by the resolutions of the 54th National Conference of the governing party, is undertaking measures to accelerate the redistribution of land, the extension of security of tenure, the provision of agricultural support, and the redress of spatial inequality. We need to unlock the economic potential of this country's land. If ownership, tenure, and the use of this country's land remains restricted to a small minority as it is today, we will never realize the contribution it can make to the growth and development of our economy. If poor people cannot own property, the most prized possession of any household is a house or a piece of land property. And if they cannot own a property and live close to the economic centers of our towns and cities, the cost of living will forever remain as high as the cost of looking for a job. That is why we must use every means at our disposal to make this happen. We have no other choice, and in fact, on our side, it is a historic duty and responsibility to restore the imbalances of the past. That is why we will not relent in our determination to use, yes, expropriation without compensation as one of the mechanisms to effect land reform. We do so understanding that expropriation without compensation is not an end in itself, but a means to an end. As we must therefore use it, we must therefore use it in a manner that advances the objectives of meaningful, radical, and sustainable land redistribution. Madam Speaker, during the debate yesterday, both the Honorable Maimane and Honorable Malema introduced into this House a figure that is known as a straw man. The dictionary definition of a straw man is an intentionally misrepresented proposition that is set up because it is easier to defeat than an opponent's real argument. The Ramaphosa definition of a straw man is a fake policy conjured up by a desperate party in order to make a false claim. Both Honorable Maimane and Honorable Malema have sought to misrepresent the position of the ANC on the issue of expropriation of land. However, if you go through the resolutions of the ANC's 54th conference, its January 8th statement, the State of the Nation address, replies to questions in this House and recommendations of the ANC's recent land workshop, there is a clear and consistent thread. We will not be diverted from the path we are on. We will not shy away from engaging in debate. We will engage, we will consult, and we will seek to build consensus. But we will not compromise on our determination to resolve the land question in this country once and for all. You are therefore invited to join us in this effort to make sure that the decisions that are taken are decisions that are owned by the people of this country. The restoration of the land to the poor and dispossessed through a constitutionally mandated program of redress and reform is a revolutionary act. The illegal occupation of land is not. We must remind ourselves why we have a constitution and why we value the rule of law. It is to protect the poor and the vulnerable from the arbitrary exercise of power, to prevent a repeat of the abuses and the violations of the past. Our Constitution is an instrument of radical transformation. We should treasure it, we should safeguard it, and we should use it to achieve fundamental social and economic change. A number of speakers also, Madam Speaker, touched on the crucial issue of governance and the need to build a capable and developmental state. Some honorable members would have us believe that this is simply a matter of the size of the cabinet. It is, I regret to say, much more than that. The reconfiguration of the state is a far greater and more ambitious undertaking that must go to the heart of the capacity of government to meet the country's developmental needs. We need to address issues of structure, not just of national departments, but of all spheres and all public institutions. We also need to address issues of efficiency, effectiveness, as well as resource allocation. Not only must we end all fruitless, wasteful, irregular, and unauthorized expenditure, but we must also make sure that the money we budget is allocated to programs that have the greatest beneficial impact. Budgeting is about making choices. We need to have the capacity, the data, and the political will to make the right choices. As Minister Dlamini Zuma said, we are working to establish an institutional framework to integrate planning across government and ensure alignment between national, provincial, local government planning and other sectors. We are working to improve our capacity to monitor and evaluate the work of all areas of the state, and to employ the great advances that have been made in information technology to better understand and analyze the wealth of data that is available about our country and its people. We need to address, yes, the culture of government. It has been several years since we introduced the Batupele principles, but adherence to these principles is inconsistent. The vast majority of public servants are very, very conscientious. They are honest and committed. But in too many parts of the state, the experience of our people leaves a lot to be desired. That is why we are working to do things differently, to promote efficiency, to encourage a culture of performance, and to find opportunities for public servants to deepen their skills as well as their experience. We have heard honorable members describe the situation in many of our frontline departments, those that provide essential services to our citizens. There are indeed areas of great concern, and these areas are matters that we want to prioritize. Our health system is truly under great strain. As the Minister of Health has said, the Public Health Service takes care of 80% of the people in the country, including large numbers of immigrants. We have nevertheless managed to initiate 4 million people on HIV antiretroviral treatment, deliver more than 1 million babies a year, and provide treatment to 300,000 people with tuberculosis annually. The increased burden of disease that our country is bearing now, and our attempts to treat as many people as possible, has increased the pressure on the public health system. One sees it as one goes to hospitals. Recently, I went to Tembisa Hospital, and just simply being taken to the neonatal side of the hospital and being told by specialists and doctors and nurses that they've run out of space, and almost 60% of the babies that are born, as I said earlier, are born to mothers who are from outside our country. Our country has become an oasis, not only for economic advancement, but also for health treatment. A ministerial team identified common problems in different hospitals around the country, primarily in human resources, financial management, procurement and the supply chain, as well as maintenance of infrastructure and equipment. The National Health Department is dispatching teams to turn around poorly performing hospitals. It is undertaking work to fill vacant posts and contracting private health practitioners to provide specific services. To reduce the burden of disease and therefore the pressure on clinics and hospitals, we are in the process of strengthening community-based health services. Madam Speaker, one area that particularly concerned honorable members was the report of the Auditor General that he has presented, where he said that there is a regression in the overall audit outcomes of municipalities in the years 2015-16 and 2016-17. This reinforces the observation we made yesterday that there has been an increase in the number of municipalities that are in dire state. The Department of Cooperative Governance and the National Treasury have begun working together on a structured and coordinated approach to support financially distressed and dysfunctional municipalities. Working together with provinces, their joint response focuses on 3 of the 5 pillars of the Back to Basics initiative, namely institutional and administrative capacity, good governance, and sound financial management. Municipalities are being supported to implement robust improvement plans, which will be monitored closely by the departments. The departments are working to address the reality that, truth be told, some municipalities are failing at effectively delivering services, billing for services, and collecting revenue that is due. And some municipalities are municipalities that simply do not have a tax base and yet still have to provide services to our people. A simplified revenue plan is being implemented to improve revenue management, reduce municipal consumer debt, and enhance municipalities' revenue collection potential. This work will feed into and be reinforced by the Presidential Local Government Summit, for which preparations are underway. Honorable members, several speakers yesterday also raised the issue of violence and crime, which continues to deny our people the peace and the security that they deserve as citizens of our country, a peace they need and indeed demand. As we indicated yesterday, we have made several important appointments to strengthen police management, including the appointment of a new Divisional Commissioner for Crime and Intelligence, and yesterday, a new head of the Hawks. It is hoped that these critical appointments will strengthen the criminal justice cluster, and the police will be able to infiltrate syndicates and arrest syndicate members, particularly those who are involved in organized crime and those who are now perpetrating these cash heists all the time. The Minister of Police has instructed the police management to conduct preventative crime intelligence-driven operations in dealing with serious and violent crimes such as armed robberies, cash heists, and murders. I have appointed an interministerial committee comprising of ministers of defense, police, state security, and justice to address the problem of political killings in KwaZulu-Natal. The IMC has begun meeting key stakeholders in the province and is expected to present a comprehensive report by the end of the month on measures to end these killings and to bring those who are responsible for these killings to book. From all these contributions yesterday, Madam Speaker, even from among the doubters, it is clear that we have entered a new era. It is a new era that holds much promise for renewal, growth, and transformation, but it will only succeed if we all work together to make it a true reality. It will only succeed if we put aside our narrow interests and pursue the shared future that the people of this country desire. Ons is almal Suid-Afrikaners wat hierdie land saam moet bou. Sisonke sifanele ukuthi sakhe iNingizimu Afrika. We are all South Africans and we have a common responsibility. I wish to conclude by expressing my gratitude to ministers in the presidency, Minister Dlamini Zuma and Dlamini, as well as the DG, Dr. Cassius Lubisi, Acting DDG Busani Ngaweni, my advisors, secretariat members, staff, directors, protectors, for enabling me to do this work. Lastly, and it is a pity that Honorable Malema is not here, I wish to thank my family and my wife especially, and to inform Honorable Malema, that the First Lady had a knee operation almost 3 months ago. And she had a knee operation called arthroplasty, something like that. She has not been able to walk properly for the past 3 months. And later she started walking on crutches, and now she has started walking on her operated foot. So, Honorable Malema, there is nothing wrong. She has just not been well. She will soon be making her contribution, particularly in her area of speciality, early childhood development. And Honorable Malema, I therefore invite you to visit some early child development center where you might be able to meet her as you so admire her. Thank you very much.
I thank the honorable.
And just a little zing there to the leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters, Julius Malema, following remarks made at the debate yesterday into the President's budget. We'll keep an eye on the National Assembly for you, but President Ramaphosa speaking there for about 20-25 minutes, saying, first of all, that there are plans to overhaul the structure of government, not just departments, but all entities and agencies, talking about a realignment from national government to municipalities. So also admitting that the Public Health Service is, in his words, under great strain, currently servicing 80% of the population as well as a number of foreign nationals. And towards the beginning of the speech, calling Mmusi Maimane and Julius Malema desperate in trying, he said, to purposely misrepresent the ANC's policy of land expropriation.